Hey guys, welcome back to RPO Restorations in part 3 of Project 1500. I'm titling this episode Squeaks and Leaks because today I'm going to show you a very wonky transmission cooler line setup. We're also going to fix some of the squeaks I have going on with the Serpentine belt system. And last but not least, I'm going to show you the Achilles heel of just about every Chevy truck I've ever seen. If you have one of these and it doesn't leak yet, it probably will. So stay tuned, we're gonna get to work. All right, so we'll start with the easy part. I have a alternator bearing that's starting to go bad, so we're gonna change out the alternator. This belt's on its last leg, so we're gonna change that out. While we're doing it, might as well replace our tensioner and our idle pulley. So first, we're gonna take off this fan shroud, give us a little more room. Get this old belt off. Take our old tensioner off. Now we'll get rid of our old idler pulley, which looks like it is way past its prime. Yeah, I think this has seen better days. Now we might as well take off our old alternator. Before I do that, and I say this from experience, make sure you disconnect the battery. This will fall, it will touch ground, and it will catch on fire. Ask me how I know. Literally gonna have to spin this thing out. Out with the old, in with the new. New idler pulley. And a new belt tensioner. Making sure to line up the notch. Now we'll torque everything down. Tensioner to 61 foot-pounds. There is no spec in the service manual for the idler pulley, so I'm just going to tighten that down a little better. Pop on a new belt. Make sure everything's lined up the way it should be. And we're done. All right, guys, now we're under the truck, taking a look at the transmission cooler lines on the passenger side. You'll notice that at some point, somebody has cut them, flared the ends, and reattached them. Now, it doesn't leak, and I don't think there's anything wrong with it, but it's also not correct. So we're gonna swap those out now. First, take a 13 millimeter, crack this top line. And that was already nice and loose. And now we'll crack that bottom line. is also really loose. Alright, so I had every intention of removing these lines on camera, but unfortunately the only angle that I can put the camera where you can see them is also the only angle I can get in there to undo them. So I'm going to take care of this and we're going to move back up top. Alright, real quick guys, I got the old lines out. One I wound up needing to cut just to make it easier to get it out. But I laid out the new ones so you can see the difference, and please be careful when you buy these lines. There is a difference between the line layout for the 700R4 and the 4L60E. I know they're the same transmission, one's electronically controlled, but as you can see, the one of the old lines is there at the top that has the joint coupled in. I think these were homemade or at least modified at some point, but you can see there is a difference, so just be careful when you're buying them. Make sure you get the right one. Alright, now that they're out, just comes into working these lines in. It's easiest to start at above the front axle, work your way up. Once you've got everything lined up at the radiator, work your way back, get everything lined up at the transmission. It's a process, trust me. Alright, now that we got the lines in, all that's left to do, hook them back up. We're going to do the radiator side first, then go underneath, get them set up at the transmission. And we've got our top lines hooked back up as well. If you're doing this, a crow's foot works wonders. Now we'll move on to what many consider to be the Achilles heel of Chevy truck oil leaks. That's the oil cooler line. Don't be fooled. Underneath this stylish plastic cladding lies a river of oil. Alright, so back under the truck we go. Here's our oil cooler lines, and here's our adapter. We're going to be replacing both. So we're going to start by taking a 1-inch wrench and working these adapters out. The quick connect fitting should allow the line to spin, so we won't have to fiddle with them while they're still attached under the truck. See how it goes. Now that we've got our lines out on the bottom, I'm going to take a 13/16 wrench, crack these two other lines here, and get them off. And they're out. Now I'm going to make another quick change of plans here, and I'll show you what I'm going to do. Alright, I don't know if you can see it on camera, but this is where the oil filter goes. This is the adapter piece, the cooler lines, and the oil filter. Wipe this off. But as you can see, I'm getting a lot of weeping up here. I don't know if it's clear. So we're going to go ahead and change that gasket out while we're at it. Okay, so I got the oil filter and cooler adapter out, and come to my surprise, no wonder it's weeping, because there was no gasket on there. So let's go ahead and get a new one on. Torque our bolts down to 20 foot-pounds. Alright guys, it's a new day. I ordered the wrong oil cooler lines, but I finally got the new ones on. So I had to take the old ones off and swap them out. Things happen. But now, before I wrap up this video, there's one more thing I want to do. I'm having a problem with my engine running cold. Put my hand on the top radiator hose about a minute after startup, and it starts to feel warm, which tells me that I think the thermostat is stuck open. So we're going to go ahead and change that out and get rid of this non-factory radiator cap while we're at it. So first I'm going to drain some of the coolant out of the radiator, get the level below the thermostat, We're going to pop that off, put a new one on with a new gasket, see what happens. Let's take this clamp off. Out of the way. Now we just have 2 bolts to remove. Take this thermostat housing out. Got the housing out. And our thermostat. Somebody used a paper gasket, which is nice because we have a nice clean surface to start with. I'll just give it a little wipe down, get our housing ready, put the new thermostat back in. All right, here's our new GM thermostat. Looks like it has a built-in rubber gasket right around the edge of the thermostat. We'll give that a try, see what happens. I've never seen one before, never used one before. You can see I went out and bought a gasket, but I guess I'll be the guinea pig. Well, let's give it a go. And let's add a proper AC Delco radiator cap. All right, lesson learned. Unless you have a nice deep lip that your thermostat sits in, don't use the rubber gasket. Take it off and buy a regular one. As I wipe up this coolant, we'll continue. All right, now that we got the truck lowered to the ground, there's one more thing I want to try that I've never done before. So we're going to back this thing out in the driveway and show you what I'm going to do. All right, before I finish up, I want to try doing a liquid moly engine flush. I've never used this stuff before, but Stretton on M539 Restorations. If you haven't seen his channel, you should definitely check it out. I wasn't into BMWs until I started watching him. Now I kind of like them. But he swears by this stuff, and I have not changed the oil in this thing yet, so I figured now would be a good time to give it a shot. All it says to do is add it to your engine oil, idle the engine for about 10 minutes, then do an oil change. So let's see what happens. While we let the engine idle, I'm going to keep checking the coolant, topping it off as necessary until that thermostat opens up and we can get all the air bubbles out of the radiator. All right, so look at that oil. Now this oil only had about 1,000 miles on it and it's pretty filthy. I've said we've gotten a lot out of the engine, so I'm going to call this liquid moly engine flush a win. Now, while I fill up the engine with some fresh 5W30, do me a favor and hit that like button if you liked the video. And if you're into 80s and 90s cars and trucks, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you can follow along with more great content. I'd really appreciate it. Thank you. One more thing before we go. I'm going to get rid of that piece of rubber on the upper radiator hose that's dangerously close to that alternator fan. We're going to replace it with a proper, correct GM radiator strap. Guys, once I finish up with this video, I'm going to go ahead and put a new splash plate on the front. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you on the next one.